Mastery of the world is achieved by letting things take their natural course. You cannot master the world by changing the natural way. Lao Tzu. In the age we live in, control seems to be the greatest virtue. It governs every aspect of life, from personal ambition to how entire societies are managed. Governments employ ever more intrusive measures to track and monitor citizens. Businesses invest heavily in surveillance to oversee their workers, and individuals, in their own homes, strive to control every detail of their lives and environments. This obsession with control has become a global fixation. Ironically, it was from China, where today's social credit systems and surveillance mechanisms are born, that a radically different philosophy emerged centuries ago, Taoism. Its teachings, rooted in the wisdom of Lao Tzu and Zhuangzi, offer a contrasting worldview, one that values letting go, flowing with life's natural rhythms, and embracing the power of the universe's inherent order. At first, this idea may seem radical, even passive. After all, in a world that celebrates action, influence, and progress, the notion of letting go can appear weak. But Taoism teaches us that true power comes not from force or control, but from understanding. When we grasp the fundamental nature of existence and align ourselves with it, we discover a kind of strength that is deeper, more sophisticated, and enduring. Let's explore the profound wisdom of Taoism and the art of letting go, as these ancient teachings continue to offer invaluable lessons in our modern, control-driven world. Wu-wei, the wisdom of effortless action. One of Taoism's central tenets is wu-wei, which translates to non-doing or effortless action. In a culture that prizes relentless productivity and achievement, this concept may seem foreign. However, wu-wei is not about doing nothing. Instead, it is the practice of acting in harmony with the flow of life, knowing when to intervene and when to step back. In this sense, it's about allowing things to happen in their own time rather than forcing outcomes. We see the need for control in every aspect of our lives. In our relationships, careers, even our hobbies, there's a prevailing belief that success requires constant management and interference. But Taoism teaches us that, while some degree of influence is necessary for survival, excessive control often works against us. Take, for example, the act of nurturing a plant. You can plant the seed, water it, ensure it has enough sunlight, and perhaps add fertilizer. Beyond that, any more intervention, poking at the roots or pulling on the stem to make it grow faster, would only damage the process. The same applies to our relationships, careers, and personal goals. Sometimes, the best course of action is non-action, giving things the space they need to develop on their own. In relationships, attraction, like the growth of a tree, cannot be forced. You can show up and be present, but the more you try to control the dynamics, the more likely you are to disrupt the natural flow. Attraction is something that grows on its own, and it cannot be sustained through control. It must be nurtured with care but allowed the freedom to evolve. The Taoists understood this as the essence of wu-wei, knowing when to act and when to let go, trusting the flow of life to carry us where we need to go. Embracing change, flowing with the rhythms of life. Life is constantly in motion, a dance of opposites, yin and yang, light and dark, joy and sorrow. The Taoists observed that the universe moves in cycles, and change is the only constant. Yet, despite this universal truth, many of us spend our lives resisting change. We cling to the familiar out of fear, even though we know that everything around us is in flux. In doing so, we expend enormous energy fighting against the natural currents of life, rather than allowing ourselves to be carried along. Imagine a person standing in a fast-moving river. Instead of allowing the water to carry them downstream, they cling tightly to a branch or rock, afraid of where the current might take them. They may believe that holding on provides safety and control, but in reality, it only tires them out. The river, much like life, will continue to flow regardless of their resistance. By letting go and moving with the current, they could conserve energy and open themselves to new possibilities. Lao Tzu, in the Tao Te Ching, likens this approach to the nature of life itself. The living are soft and yielding, the dead are rigid and stiff. To live fully, we must remain flexible and open to change. Rigidity, on the other hand, leads to decay. Just as a brittle tree branch will snap in the wind, so too will those who resist the inevitable shifts in life. Taoism teaches us that true strength lies in flexibility, in the ability to bend and adapt to whatever life throws our way. Yet, not everyone resists change by holding on. Some go to the opposite extreme, constantly swimming against the current. They waste energy resisting life's natural flow, exhausting themselves in the process. These are the people who believe that by sheer force of will, they can bend the universe to their liking. But, as Taoism teaches, this approach is not only inefficient but ultimately futile. The universe is far greater and more complex than we can comprehend, and resisting its flow only leads to frustration and suffering. The key to peace, then, is to embrace change, to allow life cycles to unfold without interference. This applies not only to external circumstances, but also to our internal nature. Many of us engage in a lifelong battle against who we are, trying to mold ourselves into what society expects. But the Taoists understood that fulfillment comes not from forcing ourselves to conform to arbitrary standards, but from flowing with our strengths and accepting our limitations. In doing so, we can find a path of least resistance, one that is uniquely our own. The futility of focusing on outcomes. Another profound insight from Taoism is the idea of letting go of our attachment to outcomes. In a world that is obsessed with goals and achievements, this may seem like a radical notion. We are taught to set goals, make plans, and strive for success. But Taoism warns that focusing too much on the future can actually hinder our ability to live fully in the present. Zhuangzi tells a story of an archer who loses his skill when he becomes too focused on the prize. When the archer competes for a simple piece of pottery, his aim is true. But as the stakes rise, when the prize is a gold trophy, his focus shifts from the act of shooting to the reward he hopes to gain. As a result, his performance suffers. The more he cares about the outcome, the more anxious and distracted he becomes, and his skill deteriorates. This story illustrates a universal truth. The more we fixate on future results, the less present we become, and the worse we perform. When our minds are preoccupied with what we want to achieve, we lose sight of the task at hand. In contrast, when we let go of the need to control the outcome, we enter a state of flow where action becomes effortless and natural. This principle is evident in many areas of life, from sports to creative endeavors. Athletes often speak of being in the zone, a mental state where they are fully immersed in the moment, unburdened by thoughts of victory or defeat. Artists experience a similar flow when they are so absorbed in their work that time seems to disappear. In both cases, it's not the external reward that drives them, but the pure joy of the process itself. Taoism teaches us that by letting go of our attachment to results, we free ourselves from anxiety and open ourselves to the present moment. This doesn't mean we shouldn't have goals or ambitions, but rather that we shouldn't let them dominate our lives. The true reward is found not in the outcome, but in the experience of living fully in the here and now. Letting go of excess, finding peace in simplicity. In a world where status and material wealth are often seen as the ultimate markers of success, Taoism offers a refreshing counterpoint. Lao Tzu teaches that peace and contentment come not from accumulating more, but from knowing when enough is enough. Zhuangzi provides a simple yet powerful metaphor for this idea. A bird needs only one branch to nest, and a mouse requires only a bellyful of water from the pond. Yet, many of us go through life believing that more is always better, more money, more possessions, more recognition. But in reality, this constant striving for more often leads to stress, dissatisfaction, and a never-ending cycle of desire. The Taoists understood that excess can become a burden. The more we accumulate, the more effort we must expend to maintain and protect our possessions. This is why Lao Tzu advises us to cut away excess and live with what we truly need. By simplifying our lives, we free ourselves from the pressures of competition and the anxiety of losing what we have. This doesn't mean adopting a life of asceticism or deprivation. Rather, it's about finding balance, understanding what is truly necessary for our well-being and letting go of everything else. When we live in moderation, we create space for the things that matter most: relationships, personal growth, and the joy of living in harmony with the world around us. Trusting the flow of life. At its core, the Taoist philosophy of letting go is about trust. Trust in the universe, trust in the natural order, and trust in ourselves. When we stop trying to control every aspect of our lives, we allow the wisdom of nature to guide us. This doesn't mean we become passive or complacent. Rather, it means we learn to act in accordance with the flow of life, trusting that things will unfold as they should. Just as a tree bends with the wind but remains rooted in the ground, we too can learn to adapt to life's challenges while staying grounded in our own values. By letting go of the need to control, we become more resilient, more flexible, and ultimately, more at peace with ourselves and the world around us. As Lao Tzu reminds us, when we stop striving, we give nature space to unfold. Letting go allows us to experience life in its fullness, with all its beauty, complexity, and unpredictability. And in doing so, we find a strength that is not born of control, but of harmony with the universe.